Hello and welcome. I am creating this video in response to a post on one of my Vectric groups on Facebook. The question that the poster had was, I have two vectors, I need to join them, and I have tried to use the join tool. The join tool doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? I'm not going to cover everything in this video, but I am going to try to cover a little bit of the specifics of how the join tool works, why it didn't work in this particular application, and then I'm going to demonstrate how I would go about closing this one vector in this case, but you could certainly use this method with any number of open vectors. In the original poster's example, he had many other open vectors that he wanted to use. He didn't go into a lot of detail on how or why he wanted to use them that way, but I'm going to do my best to capture what I think that he was trying to get to. So first of all, this is a quick SketchUp of his demonstration file. We have one open vector here on the left. There's a second open boundary vector. We're actually not going to use that one there, but we have this open vector on the left, and as you can see, this inside vector contacts the open vector on the left. Now, when I say open vector, if you're not familiar with Vectric software or vectors in general, an open vector is a vector that is not a closed loop. So in this case, we have a line which starts here at the end of this dashed pink line. It continues up the dashed pink line, around the scroll, back around, up to this little fillet, back down, and over here, and it ends right there. Now, the biggest problem with an open vector in this poster's case is you can't use an open vector for something like a pocket or a V-carve toolpath. The same thing here. You can use either of these as a profile toolpath, and you can cut on them, inside them, or well, actually you can't cut inside or outside either. See, I'm sorry. Inside and outside are only available for closed toolpaths, because an open an open profile doesn't have an inside or an outside. So this, you could carve on either one of these vectors all the way up with whatever size of tool you desired, but you can't cut inside. So we're going to change this so that you can cut inside this vector. You could do the same thing with these two open vector ends up here if you wanted to. We're not going to cover that in this video. So moving on. Now what we've got here is we've got looks like approximately at 3/8 of an inch or so gap in the ends here. Now, first I'm going to cover why the join tool in Vectric software did not work in this case. So if we select this open vector and we select the second open vector here on the left, you can see we have two pinked dashed lines, and there is a closed area here. The problem is they're two different profiles. So when I press J for the join tool, and it says, how would you like to close these vectors? Gives you a tolerance, and it says we have two selected vectors. The tolerance that I've selected now is 0.001 inch, or 1/1000th of an inch, and it says vectors after joining, 0 closed and 2 open, because what it's trying to do, what Vectric software tries to do when it joins, is it tries to join endpoints, either from this end all the way down here to this end. You can join from this end to this end here, or this end to that end, any two endpoints. Now, I'm going to change my tolerance on this vector to 1 inch, and when I press enter, you can see it joins the two ends of the vector because they were within 1 inch. It moves the two ends into each other, and it closes it. Now, when I select it, we have one closed vector. Now, we can use this for a profile toolpath, inside, outside, on. We can use this for a pocketing toolpath. We can use this for a V-carve toolpath. We can use this for whatever we want it to be. However, it's no longer the shape that we want, so that doesn't work. We're going to press Control-Z to get out of that. Now, how would I close this vector and have it maintain this exact shape with these nice squared corners? Well, there's a couple ways to do this. I'm first going to show you the way I don't like to do it because it's the fastest way, and for most cases, most people would probably say it works well enough, and then I'm going to show you the way that I like to do it. Now, we're going to get out of the Join Vectors tool. The first way, we have our open vector here. I'm just going to go over to my tool, Edit Objects, create vectors, and I'm going to draw a curve. Now we want to make sure that we go up to the top, we have geometry snapping and smart snapping on. I prefer to leave grid snapping off most of the time, but we definitely need geometry snapping. So you can see as I get close to this edge, you can see that it's snapping to the intersection of those two lines. It's actually snapping to the end point of this vector. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure it snaps. I'm going to select to start my line. This is a curve line. I'm going to zoom out, and I'm going to select a couple of points. It's, again, snapping to this geometry. Select a couple of points on there, and I'm going to make sure it snaps to the end point here. I'll zoom in. You can see that. Snapping to that end point, and close that. Oh, I'm sorry. That did not work. Let's try that again. So we're going to draw the curve. We're going to snap to the start. Select a couple of points, and we're going to snap to the end, and then right click to end that line. Now if we select that vector, oh, you can kind of see it outlined there in pink, and then we select the second vector. Now if I click join, it's going to close that vector with the line we just made. And kind of hard to see here. Let's move this to a different layer. Make it green, and we're going to call that closed vector. So now if we move that to the green layer, you can see we have one vector right there. One closed vector. So the reason I don't like doing it this way, it does work. You can use this for V-carving. You can use this for profiles, inside, outside. You can use this for pocketing. The reason I don't like doing it is this. If you zoom in here, you can see that there is a distinct difference between the path that we wanted and the path that we got. Now, you can change that if you make your curve and you draw 30 different nodes on that path. You can get really close, and most people would say, well, it's fast, it's easy, let's do it that way. I don't like doing it that way, so I'm going to show you the other way to do it. We're going to press Control-Z until that disappears. We've got our one open path. We have our second open path. Now, the way I like to do it is this. I'm going to press, first I'm going to select this vector that we want to use as our boundary. I'm going to press N for Node Edit Mode, and then I'm going to zoom in. These lines do actually meet in software. I'm not sure why Vectric is showing the overlap here. I'm actually going to scroll right over this intersection, and I'm going to press, again, I'm not clicking anything. I'm just going to press I on my keyboard. That's going to insert a node right there wherever my mouse cursor was at. I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to zoom back in on the other intersection. Get really on there, press I. Right? Now we have a node at each of those 2 points. We haven't drawn anything, so there is only one line here. There's no difference. There's no oddities in there that would cause this to carve strangely. If you were to carve 2 different toolpaths on this section, they're going to look exactly the same. Now, it's still, if we exit Node Edit Mode, it is still one line. It is still another line right here. They're not joined. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to select this vector. I'm going to go back into Node Edit Mode, and I'm going to right-click on that node and cut the vector. You can also use shortcut key C. I'm going to click this. Now what this has done, let me get out of Node Edit Mode here. This has actually cut that vector into 2 separate vectors. Some of you can see where I'm going here. So I'm going to go back down here. I'm going to select the lower vector, enter Node Edit Mode again. Hover over that control point, or again, you can right-click and you can press C for cut. Exit Node Edit Mode, and you can now see I have a separate section of that vector. It hasn't moved. It's still exactly where I want that boundary to be, and now I can use it to close this vector. Now, before we close this vector, it's important to remember, if I use this to close the second vector, it's going to disappear, which means I can no longer use it to close this path. I want to use it for both. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to select it, press Control-C for copy, and Control-V immediately for paste. That has pasted this section directly where it was before. And I'm going to press Control-Z to keep it there because that's exactly where I want it. With that selected, I'm going to select the open vector that we want to close. I'm going to again press J for join. 1/1000th of an inch tolerance. I'm not moving anything. I'm going to press join, and there you can see we have joined a vector. Now I'm going to move this to a layer. We're going to make it green again, and we're going to call this closed. And then I'm going to select apparently I need to turn that layer off. There we go. Now I'm going to select that other one, the original that we copied. I'm going to select the lower and the upper, and I'm going to join them again. Now it's important here that I join them with the same 1/1000th of an inch tolerance, because if I select too high a tolerance, it will close the ends here. As long as the tolerance is less than this gap, it knows it can't try to join those. So I'm going to leave the 1/1000th of an inch tolerance. I'm going to click join, and now I have a single vector exactly where it was before. Now if I turn that layer back on so that we can see the green closed vector that we made before, you can see that these perfectly overlap. Well, actually they don't. They do, but again, for some reason Vectric has moved that. These two are exactly where they're supposed to be, and for some reason it shows down here that they are, and then this same intersection does not like us. I'm not sure why. Well, anyway, those are going to carve perfectly. I've never had any issue carving them that way. So we did repurpose this section. We rejoined it with its original path, and now we can use this as a profile here and as a pocket here, and everything will work out wonderfully. I hope this video has been helpful. If it was not helpful, please let me know what I can improve. And it is my first tutorial video, so please cut me a little slack, guys. Thanks.